Well, good morning, y'all, and welcome to the Bears Den. So, this is a kind of a momentous thing today. This old violin, I got this in 1983. You look at it, it's a beautiful instrument, right? See the pretty grain in it and everything. It's got the weird scroll, looks like a lion's head there. You can see that. Anyhow, my dad bought this for me in 1983 from a really close friend of the family, a guy named John Wynn. Now, John was arguably maybe the best mandolin builder on the planet. At least, I don't know. I always thought he was. I love the sound of his instruments. And I was a little partial to him, I guess, too, because he was kind of like an uncle to me. He and my dad were such close friends. And I spent a lot of time with his family. And his sons are still very, very close friends of mine. So are his daughters and his grandkids. They're all like extended family for us. But anyhow, my dad got this from John in '83, which is 43 years ago. It's been a long time. And when we got it, there were a couple of odd things about it that were kind of unknown, maybe you might say. So the the scroll kind of caused a little bit of deception as far as the length of the neck. Okay, so from the nut to the bridge is technically supposed to be, well, there's two different schools of thought. One school of thought says 13 inches, the other one says 12 and 7/8 inches. I know, like Itzhak Perlman says he likes 12 and 7/8 because it makes it a little bit more playable. But it has to do with the geometry of the instrument. Whereas if it's everything's in its proper place, it puts out a lot more sound. It sounds better, tones better, projections better, everything else is better. And for all the years that I had it, okay, the fingerboard, you see right there, this is the fingerboard, the black thing. That's for those that don't know. You should always be able to shove an index finger under it. That's supposed to be 3/4 of an inch from the top, right? Well, this one was nowhere near that. It used to sit almost right on top of the belly of the violin. And that's, I'm not sure what caused all that. I know another thing is the angle of the neck to the body on the older instruments, because they used to have shorter necks back previous to 1850, and they'd have a shorter neck only by 1/4 inch, so it's not a great deal, but a little bit shorter. And then the neck angle was really straight. Now, if you'll see, this has got a really straight neck angle off the body. Now, some of the more modern ones, and I should have gotten another violin out to demonstrate, the angle's a little bit more steep. So there are a lot of indications, because I went back and forth for years trying to figure out first if this was the original neck or not. And for a long time, I always thought that it wasn't. And I had, in my mind, thought that it had been modernized. And then I noticed that there was always an issue playing it in tune. I've got other violins that were super easy to play in tune. Just throw your fingers on there and they just sound in tune, you know. This one was persnickety. It would give you trouble. So that being said, I was looking for a solution to that problem, and I've been thinking about that solution for a long time. And one of the biggest issues in an instrument this old, because this instrument's very old, right? So we've deliberated back and forth on the age of it, 1700s, you know, possibly. I don't know. So I don't really have a way of truly knowing its exact age, but it is very old. And it's the best sounding violin that I've ever played personally in my entire life. So I'm really fortunate and thankful to own it. And because of that, you don't want just anybody working on it. Now, my buddy Nathan that lives here in town, I've always let him work on my instruments because Nathan's one of the few people I really trust. He does excellent work. He's just a super nice guy, and you can trust him that he'll do the right thing. Well, he was very apprehensive about ever doing much with this instrument, and you know, because it kind of scared him a little bit, and I don't blame him. I understand. And I met this guy. I met him, gosh, a couple of years ago, I guess, at the Fiddlers Convention. It was a guy named Larry Bartow. Larry's a super, super nice guy. And I thought, even the first time I met him, I thought, this is really a nice person. And he told me, it might have been the second time or so that we had met, I'd showed this to him. And he told me, he says, well, whatever you need done to it, he goes, I can fix that for you. And he seemed pretty confident about it, and I didn't really know much about him. Well, come to find out that he is an extraordinarily good luthier. He is very, very good at repairing violins. And so he works for a lot of well-known people that I know, and I thought, well, let's give it a go. And so our initial meeting at his shop, we went over and we took measurements, and we were both sitting there scratching our heads trying to figure out what was going on with this thing. And we figured out part of the problem was that the distance from the bridge to the nut, again, 12 and 7/8 or 13 inches, depending upon your way of looking at it, it was correct. But the problem was the nut was too far this way, which means the entire fingerboard was too far that way by 1/4 inch, which is exactly the same scale from the Baroque period instruments to the modern. So then that made me question what I had thought about whether or not this was the original neck. Now I'm going, maybe it is the original neck. And the other thing that was interesting about it was, and I hadn't thought about that until recently, was the fact that this neck was so straight to the body instead of being angled more, which again makes me go, wait a minute, this could be older than I was thinking it was. It could be the original neck, I should say. And this was also, Larry explained this to me. So there's a thing, I always get this backwards, either neck through or through neck. Anyhow, it's one of those two terms. And so there's a block of wood that sits inside here, under the fingerboards, inside the instrument, so you can't see it. But like it sits right there. It's like a crescent moon shaped block of wood. And it's like a mortise and tenon joint that the neck fits into that. And then you have this button right here. And this one actually has I don't know if you can see it or not, has a dowel in it that holds the heel of the neck into place. And it's also got, I don't know if you can see that or not, there's an extra little piece of wood there. So and I remember that when John Wynn had first gotten this violin and he put it together for my dad, because it was in pieces at the time that my dad bought it, it had the through neck or neck through. So that means the block that's inside was actually made onto the neck. So it was all cut out as one piece. And in modern instruments, and in fact a lot of the older ones too for that matter, they had a two-piece. The block was separate from the neck, and then the neck just glued into the block. Well, this one wasn't that way. It was actually made onto it. So John opted to modernize that joint in this instrument, which I'm glad he did. He cut the block off. The interior block was cut off, and then he made a new block and mortised it into the block like a modern violin would be done. So, there's a lot of advantages to that, because if you ever have to remove the neck, you don't have to take the top and the back apart on the modern joints, or the ones we're talking about. The old school ones with the through neck or neck through, again, I need to learn which one of those is the proper term. That is, you'd have to take the thing apart, because the ribs have to be pulled apart to get out of this joint that they're glued into on the through neck version. So the other version is the better version, the two-piece. So John did that, and I don't know, maybe he just never even thought about it either, as far as, hey, this thing's different, and, let's measure length. So Larry and I talked about this. I don't know if we ever came to a conclusion. Larry's so smart. It's always, you feel like you're the dumbest one in the room when you're hanging out with him. He's so smart, and he's such a polite, nice person too. But yeah, we had talked about it at length, but I don't know if we ever came to a conclusion. I'll have to ask him. Maybe if he sees this video, he can chime in and let me know. But what Larry's idea was, and I thought he had a great idea, to lengthen this scale length back. And see, the reason, let me go back a little bit. The bridge has to sit at a specific point on the top for it to sound as good as it can sound, all right? And this one, in order to keep the scale length playable, the bridge had been kicked back a 1/4 inch. And that 1/4 inch really has a lot to do with the tone and sound of the instrument. Now, the instrument sounded fantastic as it was, but since the entire scale length was shoved this way, your hand position was always kind of questionable as far as pitch goes. And it would give me a lot of fits on sessions. But the thing is, it sounded so good, I'd still use it on sessions. I'd just try to adjust and play as in tune as possible. And it worked. But Larry also found something else out. Again, this is why he's the expert and I'm just the player, right? He's the luthier guy. The actual fingerboard itself had, first thing, it had a lot of wear on it because I've been playing it for 43 years and I play a lot. Okay, some guys might play 30 minutes a day. I play 2, 3, 4 hours a day, sometimes more. So I play a lot. So it's going to get a lot of wear as, being my violin. And there's relief. They call it relief. So it's a little bit of an arching. In other words, here's flat and that would be relief. If you can see how my fingers are bending back, that relief. But it's only like a millimeter. And it's somewhere in here. He's got all the measurements on that. And I think that relief kind of adjusts over from the G to the E. So I think it's more relief on the G side because it vibrates lower, so it's bigger. And so to keep it from rattling against the fingerboard, you have to have that relief in there. Well, the problem was this one had way too much relief in it, so the arching was like that. So when I would push the string down to play the note on this string, it would be sharp compared to the string next to it. Right, so I'm having to bend the string to push it down. So that was also causing it to play out of tune. So I had several strikes against me on this thing. The thing was shifted too far that way. The bridge was too far back. Because of that, this thing had too much relief in it. And also Larry said the nut was a little too high over here on this side, so he fixed that as well. So in the process, he went back and he resurfaced the fingerboard and planed and sanded it until he got it to where the relief was exactly textbook perfect. So he put a micrometer on there and he measured it and it was dead on the money. And everything on here has been mic'd out. He used he's an engineer, by the way, structural engineer of some kind. I didn't ask him too much about that, but very, very, very smart man. And he mic'd everything out and it got everything to textbook perfect specs. So that was great. Then what he did here was, since this peg box on this thing, this is the peg box where all the pegs go in, the strings are, it was actually a little longer than most peg boxes. So he went ahead and put a plug in here, and you can't really see it because he did such a great job matching the grain and the color and everything else. You can't really even tell it's been done. I mean, even looking at it as close as I am, I can't tell from here. So he did a beautiful job. And it gave us more surface here so he could move the fingerboard back and glue to it. And because of where the heel sits, it was perfect. And it wound up sitting like a very modern designed violin. So anyhow, a lot of stuff's been done to it. And by doing that, he was able to pull the bridge forward. Oh, and one other thing. So to correct for that low fingerboard thing, because now, used to before, you could not actually slide, you could barely, depends on the time of year, slide a piece of paper under this thing before, because there was times that the paper would hang up in there, especially if the humidity was high and the wood had swollen a little bit, so you couldn't do it. And now I can put my entire index finger way up under there. And the other thing that he did was, and this was really cool too, when he had the fingerboard off the violin, he actually measured the weight of it, because it's got a specific weight in grams that it's supposed to weigh. He got it down to the exact weight. Same thing with the bridge. So he made a new bridge for it, and he actually got everything down to the exact amount of weight, down to the gram, or actually a tenth of a gram or whatever, that these things are supposed to weigh so that they vibrate like they should, which was pretty amazing. And then under this, I don't know if you can see that, he put a wood shim under here that's at a real slight angle, which now causes the fingerboard to project. It's called the projection as it comes up. So it causes it to project up much higher, which does a couple things. Now we got longer length from here to here because this has been pulled back. We have also more length because it's at a sharper angle up now, which puts more pressure on the top of the bridge. Somewhere around 35 pounds of pressure normally on top of one of these, and so he got that lined out perfectly. And by the way, just a little side note, this is a Thomastic tailpiece, which they've quit making. If you find those out somewhere, grab a hold of them because they're like gold. They're like golden eggs because they are valuable, because they're, in my opinion, the best tailpiece ever made. I love these things, and they're kind of hard to come by these days. I've got a few of them, but I'm always looking to get more. So I do love those things. Um, with all these things done, so what happened was the violin got considerably louder, and it was loud to begin with, but it got considerably louder. The tone was incredible before, and the tone got even better. It's more focused now than it's ever been before. And also, the other little side note was that he really cleaned this entire instrument up, and he went back and put French polish on it, which is like a shellac kind of polish. This is an oil based uh, finish on this violin, and so since it's oil based, he could French polish it and really get it protects the wood. So if you had any bare spots, I had places where there was color, but the actual sealer that was on there had kind of worn off over all the hundreds of years this thing's been played. So it needed something to protect the wood. And so he actually put a real light, fine French polish finish on it, which makes it really pretty. I mean, it's never shined this well since I've owned it. It looks almost like brand new, 300 years old, brand new. So anyhow, he did a beautiful job for it. And now the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say. So this thing is so focused. I absolutely love it. Play a couple things. We'll play this tune. It's one of my favorite tunes, and it's kind of fitting because the love of my life has been music. And this is my favorite violin, so you might say this is my mistress here. It plays so beautifully now. The other thing is, I keep going back because I remember things. When he set the action up on it too this time, he really does a beautiful job of getting the action. One of the most playable bridges I have ever had my hands on. And the nice thing is, the action is extremely low. So as you push the strings down, there's little to no bending of the string going on. So you're not bending it sharp. Because the higher the action is, the more lower you have to play on the high notes, because you get up here and you have more clearance, and so you have to push down and the notes bend sharp. Well, these don't bend sharp much at all because he's got the action so low. And plus, it makes it so easy to get over the instrument. Took a little bit of adjusting because I had been using more of a classically arched bridge at one point. And the way he did it, I've got such regulated clearance all the way across. Just makes it so much easier to play. Oh, one other thing. I keep remembering stuff. So we were talking about the originality of this. Now, it says in the tag, it says Januarius Galliano. Probably not a Galliano, right? There's some telling things, because Galliano was an Italian guy, and these corners, like Larry was saying, these look like German corners, just stylistically. So it kind of makes you think, not Italian, but maybe German or maybe Eastern Europe, whatever. So, and the other thing was, there were a couple of other things we talked about, that this could have actually been a gypsy-made violin back in the same time period, very old. But, so it is possible that this is actually, in reality, an old gypsy violin. We don't know. Nobody knows. I wish this thing could talk, because I'd have a lot of questions for it. But, so since it could be a gypsy, let's play this old Django Reinhardt tune that he wrote for Stefan Grappelli. It's called Nuage, which means clouds. Okay, so a little bit of nuage there in homage to Stefan Grappelli and Django Reinhardt. Oh, and a weird little side note to go along with that is Stefan Grappelli played a Galliano violin. So if for some reason we're wrong and this actually happens to be a Galliano, which I don't think it is, but if it did happen to be one, it's kind of appropriate that we be playing a song that was played by the late great Stefan Grappelli that he played on his Galliano. So anyhow, I'm excited. I'm extremely happy. Thank you, Larry. If you see this video, Larry Bartow, buddy, you are my hero right now. I don't know how to thank you enough for your kindness. Such a genuinely good human being, and I am proud and thankful to call you my friend. Thank you again. Y'all have a blessed day. God bless all of you. I hope everything goes well for everyone, and we'll see you next time here at the Bears Den.